WHGE 95.3 FM. Coming up, the Open Eye. Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression in our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove. Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. That's right, here to get them started, here to get your eye open. Every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And that's what we do right here on Open Eye. Let me get my disclaimer out the way. And I'm going to come back and tell you why the Open Eye. The views and opinions expressed on Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye, with your host, Patrice Gibbs. Okay, now and then I have to remind you why we do the Open Eye. Mm-hmm. The speed of communications is wondrous to behold. It's also true that speed can multiply the distribution of information that we know to be untrue. That's a quote from Edward R. Murrow. In the current 24-second news cycle, information reaches the masses at blinding speed. Unfortunately, this information is often poorly researched and filled with falsehoods and misinformation. This leaves us with an uneducated, uninformed, misled, misinformed community. Mainstream media, which is completely corporate owned, has become nothing more than stenographers and mouthpieces for the powers that be, very rarely exploring or investigating anything beyond what they are told. Mainstream journalism has become a joke. The joke is fair and balanced reporting. Unfortunately, it is a joke on the uninformed, misinformed community. I simply cannot accept that there are, on every story, two equal and logical sides to an argument. It's another quote from Edward R. Murrow. There are 1,500 newspapers, 1,100 magazines, 9,000 radio stations, 1,500 TV stations, 2,400 publishers, all owned by only 3 corporations. Welcome to the Open Eye Radio Show. What is the Open Eye about? The Open Eye Radio Show is about keeping your vision clear. The Open Eye is about well-researched, accurate accurate reporting, and honest, fearless social commentary free of corporate influence. Our community must have information not based on emotionalism, sensationalism, or manipulation, but information that is well analyzed, clear, and concise that will educate the community. We must control the propaganda. We understand the importance of this. It is for this reason we have decided to take on the responsibility of keeping our community well informed. Join us on The Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. All right. Let's get them going here. All right. Okay, what's going on in the world? Yeah. Okay. And wait a minute. I got another note over here I got to bring in before I get this going. Okay. All right. Hey, what's up, Vaughn? I see you, brother. All right. Okay. Sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. It will create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable. That feeling is called cognitive dissonance. And because it is so important to protect that core belief, they will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything that doesn't fit with the core belief. You know, that's how you get cults. Yeah, that's a quote from Frantz Fanon, the Algerian revolutionary. All right. Hey, welcome to America, where even though the Civil War has been over for 151 years, we still have poor whites fighting for rich plantation owners. Yeah, that's what the Trumpsters are all about. Nice word. They've been doing this. That's why it's a cult. Since, like I said, since the Civil War, poor whites have been fighting for the... You know who pointed this out to us? The president that what's his name? Byron Donalds and his right-wing masters like to criticize so much. LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson. He said, if you give the poorest white man the feeling that he is above the wealthiest black man, you can pick his pockets. Yeah, that's what. You know, they get so bent out of shape when they see black success. That's how you get things like Black Wall Street, who, by the way, had a lawsuit in for reparations. You know, with reparations, what they always say is, well, you weren't back in slavery. Well, the survivors of Black Wall Street, of the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, some of them are still alive. And they sued for reparations. And what did the court say? Nah, we ain't paying you nothing. They didn't give a reason or anything. They had appealed from a lower court that had ruled against them. And this higher court said no. The ideal that we can create our own communities and succeed is so distasteful. Look, it's so distasteful. You ever heard of Wilmington, North Carolina? Let me tell you about the coup in Wilmington, North Carolina. On November 10th, 1898, over 2,000 armed white people descended on Wilmington, North Carolina City Hall and forced black and white elected officials to resign in a coup. At the time, Wilmington, North Carolina was home to a prosperous community of black business owners, doctors, lawyers, and politicians. See you, Brother Jafar. In the days leading up to the 1898 election, white groups known as red shirts organized to intimidate black voters. I'll tell you about voting. Infuriated by the result of a biracial government, a mob of white men waged a campaign of terror against black residents. Colonel Alfred Moore Waddell, a former Confederate officer and U.S. congressman, led the mob and declared that he would choke the current of the Cape Fear River with black bodies. Armed white rioters destroyed black businesses and killed hundreds of black residents. None of these people were ever brought to justice. The Daily Record, a black newspaper that had previously denounced lynchings of black people, was the first business the mob targeted. Because they want to control the information. They want to control the propaganda. Same thing they do today. President William McKinley declined to intervene, leaving Wilmington's black residents to fend for themselves. Thousands of black citizens fled the city in the wake of the insurrection, which dramatically altered the racial demographics of the city. Colonel Waddell, who led the insurrection, was appointed Wilmington's new mayor. Racial hierarchy was codified as a state policy for a half century to follow. Yeah. And it's still to this day screwed up. That's what it is. Now, I mentioned that 150 years, 150 something years. I said 151. It's probably more than that since the Civil War ended. All right, over 150 years since the end of the Civil War, and the desperate attempts to keep black and brown people from voting are still alive and well. This is from Jeffrey Robinson. Check him out. His brother teaching. We have seen poll taxes, literacy tests, outright intimidation, and murder. All those tactics were used to prevent us from voting, and they haven't stopped. Brother Jakeem, I see you, bro. Thank you. One of the most recent attempts is occurring in Nevada. And as you listen in to what's happening there, please ask yourself, if voting didn't matter, why are there so many desperate attempts to keep us and other people of color from doing so? Think about that. I hear so many people, oh, well, you know, the elections are they're already set, you know, and, well, what about that? When they put all this energy into stopping you from voting. Oh, well, you know, that's just to give you the idea that it actually means something. You're rationalizing. That's BS. There's a reason they don't want you voting. Nationally and locally. Because they want you to have no say-so in what goes on. In 2021 in Nevada, Democrats passed a law, and the law permits ballots that are sent in through the mail to be counted as long as those ballots are received within 4 days after the election. And as long as they are postmarked before the end of election day. The law also allows mailed envelopes of ballots received 3 days after the election to be presumed valid unless the postmark shows that it's not. Now, one Republican group filed a lawsuit. They claim that this violates the Constitution because the election has to be held on a single day. They claim it undermines election integrity, and they state that these ballots should not be counted. And you know who's involved in throwing that out? Raccoon Byron Donalds. The same fool that's nostalgic for Jim Crow. Idiot. This strategy is just transparent and shameful. Reduce the funding for the post office so mail takes longer to be delivered. See the technology? Close in-person voting stations so people can't go and vote in person and then challenge the validity of mail-in ballots. You see the technology? The only problem with that argument, it has no constitutional, factual, or even logical basis. First, federal law, not the Constitution, sets election day, and neither the Constitution nor federal law says anything about when the ballots are supposed to be counted. Neither because it's anything about when they are considered received. If a person mails their ballot on election day, they voted. The act of voting is finished. Neither the law nor the Constitution says anything about the votes having to be counted on the same day. And we all know that in many states, votes are not counted until after election day. They don't finish the counting until then, and this got nothing to do with election integrity or protecting democracy. It's transparent to keep us from voting. And ask yourself again, why are they so desperate to do that? Because they're afraid we'll take over. Wilmington, North Carolina is the example. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. Wait a minute, let me get with you. All right. Yeah, I did my disclaimer. Okay. I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM. You're enjoying the Open Eye. All right. You know, one of the things that comes up in voting rights is the fact that if you're a felon, there are jobs you can't hold, there are places you can't go, things you can't do, and you can't vote. And that has always been about race. Make no mistake about it. Now, if you can be a felon and be president, they need to remove felon off of all job applications, rental applications, and professional certifications. If the highest position in the land can be taken by a felon with 34 convictions, 34 counts of conviction, you're a goddamn felon. All positions should follow suit. You're allowed to vote. Use some truth bombs here. For millions of years, blacks have inhabited the earth alone. Religion is 6,000 years old. The earth is billions of years old. Religion was created to control slaves and separate them from black spirituality. You hear that? You understand that? Religion was created to control slaves and separate them from black spirituality. We have our own people demonizing black spirituality, telling you if you reach out to the ancestors that you're demon, that you're reaching out to demons. My papa ain't no demon. My mama ain't no demon. White history is a lie to hide black culture. An invading race of non-human Neanderthal hybrids stole people, land, resources, and committed genocides across the earth. See? Now what the hell is going on here? A scientist will read dozens of books in his lifetime, but still believe he has a lot to learn. A religious person barely reads one book and thinks he knows it all. It makes me think of this group, the Hebrew Israelites. And 10 things you need to know about them. They do not research the Bible, which is fiction. They read parts of the Bible they consider the truth and ignore the rest. Sound like cognitive dissonance? They fabricate evidence to convince people that Egypt had Hebrew slaves, which history proves that's a lie. They're divisive. They call themselves Hebrew, and they call Africans the cursed seed. They believe in the curse of Ham. They believe a European racist and murderer, King James, was black. King James was an awful dude. Let me tell you how bad King James was. King James would rape teenage boys. Okay? And when his mother called him on it, he had her killed. His mother. The Hebrew Israelites, they use intimidation tactics to make you comply with their agenda, and they are not progressive. And they do not like astronomy, math, or science. And they have no plans for rebuilding the nation. And what are they doing? They're awaiting an imaginary deity to save them. Delusional religious fanatics are dangerous. You, the stolen children of Africa, some of you have been so brainwashed that you love your immoral enslavers and despise your African roots. You now accept any story as being true that allows you to claim yourself as being anything other than an African. Even a fable of being Hebrews from an easily proven fake Bible. Wake up from your deep brainwashing. You can't hate your origin without ending up hating yourself. That's what Malcolm X said. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Your third eye optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, on The Open Eye. Hey, I don't know if you saw this, but it just gives you an idea of how they can't let it go. 150 years after the Civil War. Graduation ceremony. Okay? All of the school administrators are lined up. The school superintendent included a black man. When this young white lady graduates, proud to get her diploma, she's in line to shake hands with all the school administrators. Her racist ass father jumped out of the audience and ran up on stage and pushed the black superintendent back because he did not want that black man touching his daughter. Damn fool. Now the black Wisconsin high school superintendent, who was pushed by the white father at the graduation ceremony, he's speaking out. Dr. Raymie Briggs, who is the head of Baraboo School District. You know what? I don't think I would live in a place called Baraboo. Anyway, stated that an apology from Matthew Eddy is essentially worthless, as the white father came up and pushed him back and knocked him. And an apology just doesn't make things go away, Briggs explained to the Daily Mail on Tuesday. The outreach was really to indicate that he, Matthews, understands his mishap in terms of what he did and what he caused. He's remorseful. I took that as some form of apology, but that's not something I think at this time amounts to solid apology from my perspective. I don't think an apology and I'm sorry makes this go away because there's a lot of harm that was caused. The damning footage from the graduation shows Eddy pushing Briggs aside as his daughter was receiving her diploma. I don't want her touching him. Footage of the incident went viral on social media, with many condemning the father's actions. Ultimately, Eddy was forced to leave the building and was arrested for disorderly conduct. In addition, Briggs took out a restraining order against him. Let me tell you something. You came and put your hands on me. That's assault. If Briggs had just let it go, he wouldn't even have got charged with disorderly conduct. It was assault. Put your hands on me. He said he pushed Briggs as a response to Briggs rolling his eyes during a disciplinary hearing when his daughter was dealing with expulsion. His daughter was dealing with expulsion because of the crap that she learned at home, and she thought it was all right to go to school and act like a racist damn fool. In the video obtained by WISN, Eddy told authorities, "I did not want him to be able to shake her effing hand because he does not deserve it from her after all the S she went through in this district. She went through all the ish that you blaming the district for because of the crap that you taught her." He rolled his eyes when I brought up the fact that the same thing happened to her, and it pissed me off. She was expelled for doing the same thing that was done to her. And nothing was done to the previous people. It's a damn lie. Briggs released Eddy ruined the ceremony for the rest of the graduates. Yeah. You know, and anybody that knows me knows I don't do apologies. As you slap my face and then apologize, my face still stinks. And on the other side, you know, I was raised to think. So I think before I act or react. So if I slap the hell out of you, don't expect no apology because I thought about it before I did it. In this case, if I knocked you on your ass for putting your hands on me, alright, still at it. They still at it. Arizona man indicted after plotting mass shootings to incite a race war. A federal grand jury has indicted an Arizona gun vendor. He's a gun vendor for allegedly selling firearms to be used in a mass shooting he was planning in hopes of inciting a race war ahead of the 2024 presidential election. They really want this. Y'all might want to start exercising your Second Amendment rights. I'm sure my brother Saroma would agree with that. All right. Mark Adams Preacher, 58-year-old of Prescott, was indicted Tuesday on charges of firearm trafficking, transfer of a firearm for use in a hate crime, and possession of an unregistered firearm, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona announced. Prieto was taken into custody in New Mexico on May 14th after allegedly supplying firearms, rifles, to an informant and an undercover agent while plotting out an attack on African Americans and other minorities at a concert in Atlanta. According to federal prosecutors, Prieto told the individuals who he met while selling at gun shows that he hoped to kill as many people as possible. Leave Confederate flags, Ku Klux Klan propaganda, and other offensive rhetoric at the scene of the shooting in order to incite retaliation and start a race war. They killed many. In his mind, he had to unequivocally be perceived as race. It had to be unequivocally as to be perceived as race related. He expressed frustration with the direction the country is going and willingness to do violence to change its direction. Prieto allegedly personally chose the city where the shooting would take place and the specific guns that the trio would use in their attack. One of the other two participants said they did not have an AR-15, which was the firearm Prieto wanted everyone to use. Prieto gave him one. He ain't know the individuals were working with the government, but instead believed that they shared his racist beliefs and wanted to commit a mass shooting to incite a race war. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona said in a statement announcing his indictment. Prieto was ultimately arrested while driving east from Arizona through New Mexico. In his vehicle, authorities said they found 7 firearms, which he said he was taken to a gun show in Florida where his mother lives. The government agent and informant said Prieto told them he was heading to Atlanta to do reconnaissance. The concert selected for the attack was scheduled to run from May 14th to the 15th. Authorities searched his home, which he shared with an elderly man, and recovered approximately 178 firearms. These included some suspected automatic firearms and short barrel rifles, which are illegal to possess without proper registration. In an interview with federal agents, Prieto admitted to planning a mass casualty event in Atlanta, but said that it was only a fantasy, something he would never have actually done. He said he planned to call it all off when he regrouped with the 2 individuals at a gun show in June. His defense attorney, in requesting his pre-trial release last month, argued that the federal government had not presented adequate proof that his plot wasn't more than a fantasy or that he is a flight risk or danger to the public. His alleged racist beliefs, even if true, also should not be a basis for denying him bail. Denying him bail? Are you kidding? They need to lock him under the jail. And how many of them have acted on their fantasy for mass murder? You know, we have precedents here. Luckily, the judge disagreed and ordered Prieto to remain jailed, citing the strong weight of evidence against him and the lengthy prison sentence he faces if convicted. Each conviction for firearms trafficking and transfer of a firearm for use in a hate crime carries a maximum penalty of 15 years in prison. A conviction for possession of an unregistered firearm carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, the U.S. Attorney Office said. Okay, his Pietro's attorney did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Yeah, I bet he didn't have no response to the comment that this nut. And see, here's the thing. This fantasy, this nut with that fantasy, it is not an aberration. He's not a rarity. He's not something that happens here and there. This is prevalent in the Mayonnaise Brigade's community. He's one of millions that think like this, that want to do this. And this dates back to when? To immediately after the Civil War. Wilmington, North Carolina being a prime example of those that had carried out that fantasy. Learn your history. Learn American history. WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. This is The Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. Patrice Gibbs, The Open Eye. You know, it's something when we have stood up. We were accused of being involved. How many times have we been told we're not citizens? Yeah, I've seen politicians, white politicians, get up and say, African Americans, like real Americans, have a culture of their own. Like we're not real Americans. Okay? And here's the damnedest thing about that. You have white people that didn't get here until the late 1800s. For instance, Irishmen. Many of them didn't get here till after the Civil War. Some of them was here before the Civil War, but we were already here. You have white people that didn't get here until the great immigration from Europe during the early 1900s. And they consider themselves more American than black people. We're not real Americans. Okay? Of course, we were the only people that were invited here. A dubious invitation, as I've often told you, as Dr. Clark teaches us. A dubious invitation, no doubt. But we were here as long as the pure Americans that came on the Mayflower. They came on the Mayflower. They're true Americans. We were already here. We were already here. We came before Columbus. And those of you that feed into that, well, yeah, because we're indigenous. No. We came from Africa. We were great shipbuilders. Our history did not begin in 1619, which is what they want you to believe, which is what they want to teach in schools. How many times have we told you our history did not begin with slavery? Slavery interrupted our history. And even with that slavery, we were here. But for many Italians and Irishmen and Jews and Poles and Germans and what have you. I saw a guy, his German-Irish. And he admitted his Irish family didn't get here until after the Civil War. The German half of his family didn't get here until they came through Ellis Island. Okay? Then we wonder how things happened the way they did in the late 60s after we tried with nonviolence. We're murdered in the streets. Children assaulted with fire hose. That is hurt. Then the leader of the nonviolence, they want him to speak out. And he did. They wanted him to speak out against the riots that were coming up, that were raising up. And he did. But he didn't say what they wanted him to say. Here's what he said. A riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America fails to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than they are about justice, equality, and humanity. Who said that? Dr. King. Yeah. Now, many of us are actually condemned for believing in racial conspiracy theories. Okay? I don't like conspiracy theories myself. But in our situation, we're dealing with the reality of racism. Yeah, it's both possible that black people believe in conspiracy theories and that black people have centuries of first-hand experience with real-life conspiracies waged against them. But in the end, can we really call them conspiracy theories when the receipts for actual conspiracies are plentiful and readily available? Okay, that's from writer David Love from the Griot. A study from the Pew Research Center found that majorities of black people believe in racial conspiracy theories, specifically that American institutions are designed to hold them back. Pew defines racial conspiracy theories as the suspicions that black adults may have about the actions of U.S. institutions based on their personal and collective historical experiences with racial discrimination. After the study was published, Pew later added an editor's note to its report stating that the study is under review and using the term racial conspiracy theories was probably not the best choice to make. Black Americans' doubts about the fairness of U.S. institutions are accompanied by suspicion. How Black Americans think those institutions impact their ability to thrive is worthy of study. And that was the purpose of this survey, the Pew editor said. According to Pew, people believe U.S. criminal justice, economic, and political systems are conspiring against them. For example, a majority of Black adults say that U.S. prisons, the courts, the political system, the economic system, news media, and healthcare systems are designed to hinder the progress of Black people. See, we don't just believe that, but we come with receipts that this is what's going on. The study says that most Black people are aware of specific racial conspiracy theories, such as the idea that more Black people are incarcerated because prisons want to profit from Black bodies. And they believe this to be true. Let's look at the broken window policies in New York City under Rudy Giuliani. When you're Black and you jaywalk, boom, there was the cops. You got a ticket. You missed the court date. Now you got a bench warrant. You didn't have the money to pay the ticket. You had to spend the weekend in jail. You didn't show up to spend the weekend in jail. And you were in prison and sentenced for a time. You're standing on the corner, minding your business, and boom, here come the cops. The example in New York is nationwide. Our criminal justice system is punitive for profit. It's punitive for profit. Look at what they do. You're locked up and then you're saddled with fines you can't pay. So say you're locked up for participating in the underground economy because you can't get a job. Now you're released and saddled with all these fines. You can't get a job because you're a felon. So you go back to the underground economy to try to pay off these fines. It's catch-22. You're endangering your freedom to maintain your freedom. You know, there's a long list of reasons why Black Americans should be critical and suspicious of American institutions and believe the system is set up against them. Where do we begin? Do we have a time? The transatlantic slave trade, the reason many of us are here, is a prime example. The slave trade was most certainly a conspiracy by white elites to get paid through mass kidnap, trafficking, rape, torture, and forced labor. In South Carolina, where over 40% of enslaved Africans entered America through the port of Charleston, and where many of our families have remained for over 300 years, the State Department of Education has eliminated the teaching of advanced placement African American studies in high school. And this move follows a trend across the country by white nationalists to criminalize or otherwise ban Black knowledge, history, and books. Hide the evidence of the crime, and you silence the calls for justice and reparations, or at least make the best effort to shut them down. We know what Black men suffer under the criminal justice system, Black women too. We know how dangerous cops are to Black men. What we don't talk about It's how dangerous the medical system is to black women. Okay? The medical system is to black women what the justice system is to black men. And that dates back to slavery. John Sims, the father of gynecology, declared that black women don't feel pain on the same level as white women. So he experimented on them without any anesthesia. Do we have time? I could go on and on with this. Yeah. White supremacy and institutional racism have always been involved in regulating what and whether black people can read and controlling the voting rights of black people. That's a conspiracy nearly 60 years since the passage of the Civil Rights Act, like I explained to you earlier. The voting rights for black people are all under assault by red states, the Supreme Court, and white nationalist lawmakers in the so-called land of the free. Voter suppression, disenfranchisement, and purging of voter rolls are the name of the game. Don't get it mixed. White supremacy has a plan for you. White supremacy plans to either exploit you, enslave you, or kill you. Open your eyes. This is our reality. It's not just about freedom. It's about survival. I'm Patrice Gibbs. This is The Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. You're enjoying The Open Eye. I'm your host, Patrice Gibbs. June 19th, Juneteenth. Many celebrations have already started across the land. Of course, it was 2 years ago declared a national holiday. Juneteenth, commemorated annually on June 19th. Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration of the end of slavery in the U.S. The Emancipation Proclamation, issued by President Abraham Lincoln on September 22nd, 1862, announced that on the first day of January 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state in rebellion against the U.S. shall be then, henceforth and forever, free. However, it would take the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution to end the brutal institution of American chattel slavery. Make sure to include chattel slavery in there. After the Civil War ended in 1865, most slaves in Texas were still unaware of their freedom. This began to change when Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas. Major General Gordon Granger, commanding officer, District of Texas, from his headquarters in the Osterman Building, read General Order Number 3 on June 19, 1865. The order stated the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves. With this notice, Reconstruction era Texas began. Freed African Americans observed Emancipation Day as it was first known as early as 1866 in Galveston, Texas. As community gatherings grew across Texas, celebrations included parades, prayer, singing, and readings of the proclamation. In the mid-20th century, community celebrations gave way to more private commemorations. A reemergence of public observance helped Juneteenth become a state holiday in 1979. Initially observed in Texas, this landmark event's legacy is evident today by worldwide commemorations that celebrate freedom and the triumph of the human spirit. Juneteenth, this Wednesday, June 19th. Now, I saw a lot of people asking, I saw a video, a guy going around, I've seen a few of them, asking specifically black people, and he asked a few white people and other people of other races or whatever, what's more important? What's more important to you? Juneteenth or the 4th of July? And of course you had those people, mostly white people, that said, well, of course the 4th of July meant freedom for all of us. And you had even some black people say, well, they're both important. The 4th of July, huh? I'm going to let Frederick Douglass answer that question for you. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than any other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is constantly a victim. I will not enlarge further on your national inconsistencies. The existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism a sham, your humanity a base pretense, and your Christianity a lie. It destroys your moral power abroad and corrupts your politicians at home. It saps the foundation of religion and makes your name a hissing and a byword to a mocking earth. Is the antagonistic force in your government the only thing that seriously disturbs and endangers your union? It fetters your progress. It is the enemy of improvement, the deadly foe of education. It fosters pride. It breeds insolence. It promotes vice. It shelters crime. It is a curse to the earth that supports it. And yet you cling to it as if it were the sheet anchor of all your hopes. Oh, be warned, be warned. A horrible reptile is coiled up in your nation's bosom. The venomous creature is nursing at the tender breast of your youthful republic. For the love of God, tear away and fling from your hideous monster and let the weight of 20 millions crush and destroy it forever. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM coming up to the close here. Hey, happy Father's Day. Yes, indeed, happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. I miss mine. Happy Father's Day, Pop. You know, John Gibbs, my father, he was the epitome of a fun father. Even when he caught me putting super glue on the toilet seat. Even when he caught me putting salt in the sugar bowl. Even when he caught me pouring lighter fluid down the ant hole in the backyard. Even when he caught me putting water balloons in the freezer. Even when he caught me stealing eggs to throw at cars. Even when he caught me teaching my little brother the finer points of profanity. Even when I made the shoes shiny with Crisco. Pop couldn't punish me because he couldn't stop laughing. And it's probably Pop's sense of humor is the main reason I survived childhood. Yeah, Pop was a lot of fun. John Gibbs had a wonderful sense of humor and was a very quick wit. My father was a natural storyteller and gifted poet. And he was really a hilarious man. If his ambition had ran in that vein, my father could have been a top comedian. And that's not hyperbole or just love of my father. John Gibbs was really funny. Ask anyone that knew him. Pop used to tell me that I was a natural smartass. I got it from him. I remember in the mid-70s, the Puerto Rican community on the west side of Wilmington revolted because the cops had killed a priest from their community. Of course, black kids joined in, throwing rocks and bricks and bottles at the cops. And when the crowd was dispersed, kids ran everywhere. Now, when I got to my father's house, Pop was on the front porch where he herded kids who were running up and down the street. A cop on the horse came over and asked Pop if those were all his kids. It had to be like a dozen or so kids on the porch. And Pop looked around and said, yeah, they my kids. He took another look around and added, and there's 2 missing. That was my Pop. Happy Father's Day, Pop. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. All right. Yeah, we missed yesterday's show. We had some technical difficulties, so I came in today and put it down. I hope I put it down. As we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining. All right. And as I always tell you, global African supremacy, because the world was a much better place when the African ruled. Happy Father's Day, my brother. Miss you.